Good morning. Welcome to the Celtic Way morning briefing live. It's Monday, the 28th of November. Well, it is in the UK. I don't know where I am at this minute in time. Spread eagled all over the joint. That's neither here nor there. And I'm joined today, well, first and foremost, I'm Tony Haggerty, at Haggerty10. You know the drill, you know the Twitter handle by now. I'm joined, as always, by Sean Martin at Sean Martin TCW and Aidan McDonald at Aidan C. McDonald. Now, gentlemen, before I do anything, I'd just like to say it's good to be back. Wonderful to be back. I've been around and about, as you all know. There you have it. The Egypt's back from down under. The EK Thunder from down under. But first and foremost, Black Friday offer, guys. It's still going on. It ends on Wednesday midnight. So to take advantage of this incredible offer, £1 for 6 months of full access for everything that we do on the website, everything that's written, and access to the pods. You know what to do. Click that button, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. That's a magic offer, Black Friday, £1 for 6 months of full access to everything. Just hit the button, you know the score, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Now, gentlemen, did you miss me? Did you miss me like the toothache? Basically, yeah, it was one of those ones, yeah.
The word Wombat's got it, crikey.
Yeah, Struth. Sorry, I didn't. So how are we, Sean? How are we, Aidan? All good?
Not bad, aye. Not bad, yourselves?
Good. Enjoying the World Cup? Taking an avid interest in the Celts?
I'm watching it because it's on, but I can't say it's not been really catching me, no.
Not gripped you?
Although I was watching it last night, which I suppose will come to first in it before we go into the power rankings, that
yes, indeed.
Josip Juranovic was facing off against potentially his successor last night in Alistair Johnston. Did you watch it?
I did indeed, yeah.
You're sleeping now, but you're not sleeping.
Well, in between falling asleep, but I was a bit as awake as Josip Juranovic was for the first cross that came in for your man to bullet the header in.
Well, there you go, Lanky 67's channeling that kind of that attitude there.
Yeah.
He didn't do that bad after that. I don't think.
He set up the goal as well.
He did get out jumped for the opening goal. But you know, I mean, when that kind of ball comes in, is it your right back you're looking at or one of the centre backs? I don't know. But I mean, he got out jumped individually. So and then Johnston decided to get nutmegged for the Croatia equaliser. So
I just think it's kind of microcosmic of Juranovic. It was a very Juranovic type goal to lose, wasn't it?
It was. To be fair.
You've been in that movie or you've seen that movie before at club level, so you're thinking nothing changes. You know, it's just like it is what it is. You know, so but hey, fair enough.
Where do you go, Aidan? This is a weird question, right? But I like it. Michael Ross, with a wee hypothetical. If you hadn't seen Josip Juranovic play before last night and you were just judging it on one of those two from that game, what one would you go for?
That is a difficult question.
Is it difficult because you were impressed by both or because you weren't particularly?
Obviously, like Tony's already mentioned, Juranovic wasn't great for the goal in terms of his position. It looked like he was trying to almost like move one way to maybe try and like cover the cross to get it out the park, and then he just let Davis right in front of him to build a header. But then also he got the assist. Pretty much probably been a bit of a normal performance for Juranovic this season. It's been a bit inconsistent. For Johnston, I thought he did all right. I know he did get nutmegged for that goal, but
it was a good pass.
Probably in terms of last night, I think I'd probably still go for Juranovic just because he got the assist. But if he hadn't got the assist, yeah, it would have been probably Johnston.
Nailing his colours to the mast there, Tony. You in agreement?
I'm always on the Juranovic train, Sean. I'm always on the Juranovic train.
Heard you walk about Dumbarton singing Fireball all the time.
Listen, you know my thoughts on Juranovic. I said it before, and yourself and myself got roundly slated when we kind of put him in the 12 to 15 million bracket. But I think your eye test and my eye test told you what you were watching. And whilst he was a better than average player and at times could be very good, I wasn't getting carried away with the hyperbole surrounding him in terms of, and I know like Atletico Madrid made inquiries about it and he was very flattered by that and he mentioned that himself and stuff. But, you know, I still think if you get that kind of figure for Juranovic, you would be doing very well. Because if you've said before, Sean, he's 27 and he's got one big move left in him. And if Celtic can get double figures of millions for him, then I think they'll have done very well for a guy they signed for £2.5 million What that double figures millions will be is anybody's guess. It's what somebody's willing to pay for him. Still think there's touches of erraticness about Juranovic, positional erraticness in particular. I think going forward he's very good, as he showed. Alistair Johnston, it's very hard to make any kind of sound judgment on him because you've not seen too much of him. But Andrew Gillespie said he looked good in Canada's first game, and he looked okay against Croatia as well. So
Robert Gibson disagreeing wholeheartedly, not overly impressed. He's bang average. So, again, it's a small sample size if you're just judging it on the World Cup. I've put Stuart Ross's in-depth scouting report in the comments. Because obviously Stuart won't have just based it on the World Cup. He's went and dived into the clips of his Montreal, his Montreal spell at Montreal, and stuff. So I presume the two of you have read it. I know you have, Aidan. Tony, you had a chance in between sleeps.
I've been reading the stuff. Of course, I mean that's the one thing.
Pretty positive about him. In terms of how he might adapt if he were to come to Celtic, which I think by all accounts seems to be getting a bit closer.
I loved how the commentator, the BBC commentator, John Champion yesterday, just set everybody on red alert by saying Alistair Johnston, who has agreed a fee with Celtic and will become a Celtic player, and everybody was like that, bit in the airplane, went, oh! People started losing it, So, and I guess when he said that, all the Celtic supporters started to watch him closely and start to dissect things that he does and all that, innit? So if Celtic have signed him, then again, Sean, it's another indication of acting like a big club, getting their business done early, identifying someone, bringing him in, and if Josip Juranovic does leave, then there's a ready-made replacement or someone who can fill that role and compete with Anthony Ralston for that starting shot. So surely that's what you want. That's the way big clubs operate, especially a big club that's operating within certain financial parameters. So if they've gone out and scoped this guy, identified him, and brought him in, then that's great. I mean, that's the way. I don't think I've ever seen a Celtic team or board and work in unison like this and really do their business properly. And I think that's all the Celtic supporters want, and that's what puts a smile on your face, doesn't it?
Well, Tony, that's what me and Aidan were talking about that Friday, and kind of said, I think the days of Stephen Fletcher, he on the final day of a window are gone and all that, I think, which is to everybody's benefit, including the players. Max Stark coming in here saying, need to remember, Johnston was playing on the right of a back three for most of the game. Played right back, and of course, Canada play a back three, and he did drop back as well. He also plays right wing back mostly for Montreal as well, but Stuart kind of deals with that in his scouting report in terms of, although it's not the same system. Again, I said this on Friday with you, Aidan, but in terms of it's not the same system, but they do enjoy a lot of the ball. They do attack. They do press fairly high, so there are similarities there that might let him adapt a wee bit quicker than otherwise would be the case if he was coming from a team that a 3 at the back was essentially a 5 at the back, that kind of thing. Any more comments on Juranovic or Johnston or the JJJ derby?
I just wanted to touch on about Johnston. Actually, there was a couple of times, particularly at the start of the game last night, where he won a few headers in the middle of the park and he was sort of cutting through the centre of the midfield almost to spray a couple of passes, which, if he's comfortable doing stuff like that, he should suit the inverted role that Andrew's going to potentially have him playing. So I thought that was quite a positive, very small sample size, obviously. And after Croatia got back in the game, also they went on to win quite easily. So it was a bit of a struggle for Canada. But at the start, I thought he showed, from an attacking point of view, some traits that was quite positive for an Ange Postecoglou Celtic team. So just wanted to touch on that.
Sean, that's what you're looking out for. We bang on about those idiosyncrasies and those behaviours and those patterns that you kind of players fit in to the system, and you can see exactly why Ange scoped this guy or he's been scoped out. And so because you did, that's what you were watching for. Can he play that role and sort of fitting into that and doing things, looking good going forward, coming inside and all that. So that these were the behaviours and the patterns that you were watching out for, and then taking into account his overall game. But there's certain, as the idiosyncrasies that you're watching for and thinking, okay, can I envisage him doing that in a Celtic jersey? The way the manager operates, can I envisage the guy playing for my team? Yes, I can. Therefore, that's why they've signed him.
Yep. Lanky came in saying he's got a good bit of versatility about. He's played right back, centre mid, and right mid. I'd kind of caveat that with centre mid's never been at senior level. That was at college. He played centre mid, switched to right back before he kind of get drafted and stuff. And since then, I think what was it said on Friday? It's like 10,000 senior minutes, and it's like nearly 8,000 at right back or right wing back. So that is his position. He's occasionally played centre back. Not the tallest for a centre back, but as you've seen at times last night, slotting at a back three, which means he's pretty good with the ball as well. And right mid, I suppose, in a 3-4-3 as right wing back, right mid, whatever way you want to put it. But Lanky's got a point. He has played there. And similar to, like, we've got a famous example in the squad of someone who started at centre mid at youth level, became a fullback, and since it's Ange Postecoglou that's the manager, the skill set that brings through into the fullback role when it's inverted has just shone through, as you'll see with the rankings in a minute. And that's Greg Taylor, who obviously played centre mid for Kilmarnock as a younger. Yeah. So that bodes well as well. You can't say he's going to do the same as what Taylor did, but Lanky's got a point. He did play centre mid when he was in college, so he's got that background of having to use the ball and seeing the ball a lot.
Yeah. So talking of ratings, Sean, this is where you take centre stage with the Celtic Way power rankings for the first part of the season. And you'll explain how this works for those who are still maybe arguing the toss over certain players. But the floor's yours. Explain what we do here and how it all comes about.
Well, you'll know. I mean, we put them up every week, or twice a week if they're playing twice a week, 3 times a week if they're playing 3 times a week. But we do every single game. Either myself or Tony will do detailed player ratings. Aidan actually done his first one the other day during the Sydney Super Cup, didn't you, Aidan? Very generous, I think it was. But it was so we do that every game, basically. Detailed player ratings. Emphasis on the detailed, really, more than the actual rating at the end of it. When you need to explain it, put it that way. You need to justify why you're giving them the rating. You can't just do tabloid speak of played well, miscued a couple of passes, 6, that kind of thing. You need to proper paragraphs, proper detailed explanations for it. So whether it's myself or Tony that submits it, I collate them in a spreadsheet throughout the season, as we did last year. If you've been watching since last year, you'll know what I'm talking about. But just for those that have not really done it with us before. So I put them in the spreadsheet. The only caveat being if it's like a sub appearance, you only get a 2 or a 3 or a 4 out of 10, you've been on for 5 minutes, that kind of thing, then it doesn't feel fair to really let that take down your average rating. So we'll scrap those, and it's only substantial game time appearances that count. We average them all out, and we put them, basically put you to them as power rankings. And we haven't done one this season yet because although there was an international break, which is usually when we do them, I thought, well, there's a 5-week break coming up for the World Cup, so we might as well wait until then, do it as a that is the natural kind of gap to do it. So we done it and went up Saturday. A bit of minor controversy, Tony, as usual. But the important thing before I flick these up to remember is we've not just pulled these out of nowhere. We've not just pulled them out of our back pockets. It is based on the detailed ratings. Now, I must admit, if there are any complaints, forward them to Tony Haggerty because he's done the majority of the ratings. But it's basically, it's based on the ratings rather than just at the end of this wee period of games just going, right, we'll put him top, we'll put him third, that kind of thing.
And as I said to Stuart Ross, if there is any complaints, we'll talk about it for 5 minutes and then agree that I was right. Kind of Brian Clough stance on that one, guys. All right, but no.
Right, before I put it up, actually, there is one threshold, and that is 20% of competitive minutes, which is 414 minutes, right? So you've got to have played that to be in consideration. So there's 21 people qualify for that. The closest that made it in was James Forrest with 441 minutes. And the ones that didn't, for instance, Oliver Abelgard, James McCarthy, and then the likes of Scott Bain, Benjamin Seagrass, Scott Robertson, and different ones like that. So there's 21, and we do it in reverse order. I'll put the full, the link to the full explanations and stuff, which you've got wee stats and stats bomb graphics and all that kind of stuff, littered throughout it. But he's ready, boys. Aidan, you're in the ideal position here. You can just slate this if you want. But so there we go. In reverse order there, which is arguably the most controversial one as well. Leo Labada, 21st, Tony. The guy's getting like 9 goals this season. How's that came about?
Well, he's had lots of kind of 8s, a 9, and then he's dipped to like 4 at one point, hasn't he? A couple of times, 4 and 5 and stuff like that. So, yeah, It's the average, isn't it? Abada's very up and down, as opposed to Carter Vickers, who's a steady Cameron Carter Vickers 8/9, as we call him. You know, so and so that's the thing with Abada. You get what you get. I've said before, the impetuosity of youth sometimes. Sometimes it can be really, really good. Other times it can be bang average. And I think that kind of power ranking placement at the minute shows that he has peaks and troughs.
Even last year, Tony, that he was perennially, and I think we've done 4 or 5 entries last year, the power rankings, and he was always lower than what people expected. But it's the same rationale. It's all right. Maybe this year there's slightly more sub appearances than last year, but last year I always felt it was because he wasn't able to be rotated, so he was in the team virtually every week for most of certainly the first 2/3 of the season, and couldn't really be rotated out of a rut. So if he was in it, if he was in a rut, he had to play through it. And you're talking, more 4s and 5s than anything else. Which brings it down, obviously. And I'm not talking 4s and 5s where he's getting the 10 minutes or so, because obviously we wiped them. I'm talking games where he started, he's still getting 4s and 5s from one of us. He's just been ineffectual for a lot of them. But then you look at his, and this kind of exemplifies it, I suppose, his run of games. He had the Dundee United game, the Ross County game, the Rangers game. That's been his standout run. 3 games. And so far, that's more than half his goals and half his assists just in those 3 games. Whereas the rest of the games, obviously the other half of his goal, the other half of his assists and stuff, but the rest of his games have been definitely below par compared to those 3. Aidan, are you surprised he's that low, or do you kind of see why he's ended up there?
I'm a wee bit surprised he's that low, just given the amount of kind of goals and that he has had. But I understand what you're saying, that he can go missing in quite a lot of games, particularly some of the European games. He was almost a man down at times. So I guess my maybe opinion's just clouded a wee bit because of hat tricks against Dundee United and goals against Rangers. But it makes sense. Yeah, it does make sense why he's that low, because I know his output sometimes isn't the best.
Dies Maida, Tony, 20th, I think. I mean, I've says in it, it's not really like Abada. It's not like he's playing and getting 4s and 5s. He's playing all right, but kind of not standing out, so he's getting 6s a lot. And that's why he's ended up down there. Kaiser obviously missed the wee intro, saying Turnbull and Forrest have played about a game and a half. This must be average performance. You're correct. That is exactly what it is. It's average performance throughout the whole first bit of this season. Kaiser, so all our detailed ratings collated, averaged out, and Abada and Maida are propping up the table, Tony. He says Forrest there. He actually also, Kaiser comes in and says Starfelt has been injured for months. He's still played more than James Forrest has played. Still played more minutes. Is there anybody else, Aidan, in that, see that bottom half, or bottom 11, if you want to put it that way, that kind of either surprises you, or you thought would be lower, or thought would be higher?
I thought maybe Haksabanovic might have been a wee bit higher, but I suppose he didn't come in till a wee bit later, and then it was a wee bit longer before he was involved. But I would see the bottom half. It's probably relatively what I expected, I would say.
Tony?
Well, we spoke off here and we said that Haksabanovic, if he keeps up his form, will crash that top 10, no bother. Maybe even go higher, and also as well, possibly Aaron Moy, because Moy's been late coming to the party, hasn't he? But the games he's played and he's averaged, Moy too low, been crucial, and I get that, but he's only started really stringing it together, hasn't he, of late? So, I fully expect if Moy continues in that vein as well, then both him and Haksabanovic will be in the top 10, no bother.
Andrew Gilley obviously saying Moy too low, being crucial in absence of McGregor. Aye and no. He said, as I've wrote in the thing, his average performances, I'm not surprised where he is really, because he said standout displays, he's had excellent displays at the 8 and the 6 since arriving, and he said subpar displays. So I'm not really surprised that it's averaged out to him being a pretty average kind of entry in this, really.
Yeah, but I think those two of the bottom 10 or 11, 11 there, those two are the ones you can see crashing the top 10, aren't you? Moy and Haksabanovic.
I think so.
possibly Starfelt as well if he gets a run of games and is a steady Eddie alongside Cameron Carter-Vickers. So that those three in particular are, and possibly Maida and Abada.
I expect Maida to rise and I expect Abada to rise if they get a grip of the kind of form, but not necessarily into the top 10 depending on the form of others, isn't it?
I look at certainly that top 8 for me is a reflection of the best players at Celtic this season, without a shadow of a doubt.
We can move into the top 8 if you want. I don't suppose anybody's surprised about Juranovic maybe not making the top 10 this time. Although I would say about Juranovic that although we talk about that Atletico Madrid thing, maybe turning his head and stuff, just after that, when he began the campaign, his run of 8 matches, his average rating was like a 7.4. He brought it at the start of the season. It's only since then that it's he's found it difficult to stand out, and his average rating across the kind of second half of this opening run of fixtures has been closer to a 6. So that's ended up with him in the outside the top 10. But I mean, when you get into the top 10, I think a lot of people might be, well, there's a few comments about Jens being a bit high, but at the same time, I think he's been pretty consistently good. And this is kind of ties into the number 1 spot, Tony. It actually ties in with more than Jens. It ties in with all of the other back four and the keeper. But Jens's performance levels they dipped for like 3 games to like a noticeably poorer standard, and it was the 3 games that Carter-Vickers was out. So, I mean, you take from that, I think, exactly what it says in the tin.
Yeah, correct. And, we're stressing that these are the average rankings, of every
average ratings. Every game since that Aberdeen game at the start of the season. So
just that we know your own personal rankings, you would have players higher up. But this is
Taylor first, for instance, Tony.
I'm seeing comments coming in saying this guy should be higher. No, they're based on the rankings or the ratings, man by man, detailed man by man ratings that myself, Sean, and Aidan give these guys. So, and then it's averaged out. So we can't stress that enough. It's of course it's not going to be to everybody's liking, but there's not an exact science to it, but there's a form of science to the way we do it, Sean, isn't there?
The way we put it last year was at the end of the season, whoever's top will be a player of the year, and it's the eye test player of the year for us, because obviously it's not scientific. It's just it's our ratings from the games. But I still find it interesting to see, 1, do we know what we're talking about, and 2, if we don't, where is it that we're not seeing the things that other people have seen? And Abada seems to be one that is constantly lower than what people think. Bad, I do think it's a pretty simple explanation for that, and it's just simply that he's inconsistent, so he's not getting enough of the good ratings to outweigh the bad. But
and you see somebody like William Lamont asking how many games has Ralston started, but
he's met the minutes threshold. That's the thing. He's played.
He's made the minutes threshold, and every game he's played, he's arguably been the man of the match or second or third. With a 7 or an 8, and I think one game he got a 9, didn't he? I believe. I'm trying to remember.
He's played nearly 800 minutes. It was not even close to not making the cut-off. He's played plenty. Yeah. And I seen a comment saying about McGregor as well. McGregor's been out for like 11 games, but he played like every minute before it, so he was nowhere near not meeting the threshold either. And you've got to remember, and this is where recency bias is coming into it with people, McGregor was excellent. Apart from that St Mirren game, McGregor was excellent virtually for every minute that he was on the park. So if anything, I was surprised he was 5th and not top 3. So I think you need to remember it's the entirety and not just the past few weeks.
And people are saying they're surprised where Taylor is, but I
must admit, I thought Taylor and Ralston might the other way about, but that's the way that it averaged out. So,
and you wouldn't bat an eyelid at that if Taylor and Ralston swapped, would you? So that's fine. But again, we go back to it and say, well, it's the average ratings, so that's fair enough, isn't it?
Kai's saying about Starfelt being out, same thing as McGregor. All right, he never played as much as McGregor, but he's played more. He played more than Forrest, Starfelt. So it's right. So Kyogo 8th, and this is where I think you need to remember last year's rankings, Tony. Kyogo was top of the first one, and then I think top 3 right through until the last one. I think did he finish 4th? I think he finished 4th. But that average rating is the same average rating as what he was top with at the first rankings entries last year. So to me, that just tells me that Kyogo's actually started the season pretty well, but the amount of players that are stepping up is night and day compared to last year, where Kyogo averaging round about a 7 was enough to be top at the first rankings. Kyogo averaging a 7 and he's barely in the top 10 because so many other players are standing out week to week.
Aidan, that tells you something, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does show like how strong quite a lot of the team have been, whereas obviously last year, particularly at the start when the squad was quite thin, maybe you could argue that sometimes Kyogo was almost carrying the team at times, and key examples being his goals in the League Cup final, etc. But this season there's been a lot of players contributing, which is only a positive thing, isn't it? Because you need, if you're going to have a successful season, you want to be hoping that lots of players are performing at their best, and that's what that shows, given that stats wise, Kyogo's not really that different to last year. So no, I only see that as a positive person.
William Lamont there, I didn't think there'd be any disagreement with Carter Vickers, but he says no, he's out for months. He was out for 2 Champions League games and 2 league games. Again, miles, he's played hundreds. So aye.
And he's solid. And
Andrew Gillies saying, with his eyes tell him Ralston does deserve his spot in the top 5. Stephen MacArthur saying Jackie Max and Kyogo are rightfully not in the top 5, but as strikers, one of them should have been performing. The thing is, just because you're not in the top 5 doesn't mean you've not been performing. As I say, Kyogo's average rating's the same as what it was last year. So, and he is still, I mean, he's still scored 7 opening goals. But is it many for the season? Is it now 9? 10? Yeah. Can't remember. But he has started well statistically. Obviously, there's some high-profile misses in there in the Champions League in particular. But to me, him being 8th doesn't mean he's not been playing well. It just means that there's been a lot more players this year to contend with him in terms of putting in the performances week in, week out.
Yeah. Beach Boys coming in here, Sean, just to label the point. Yeah, so yeah, so that's...
And that means a lot, because Beach Boys is not a spreadsheet fan, so if he's defending the spreadsheet, he must be getting annoyed with people.
Yeah, he did say that earlier on, he's not a spreadsheet fan, but I also think it's a brilliant talker, isn't it? And we're not saying that this is by far in the way that the best Celtic players' ratings this season. It's our version of it. Everybody's will be different, but it's our version of it in terms of making it some kind of, you see, not an exact science, but doing something, a kind of average rating of players as our eye test, all 3 of us. So
I mean, Andrew Gillies says there, as he says, all our spreadsheets will be different, which is a fair point. The way that the rationale for this for the get-go was we're going to do the detailed ratings every game anyway.
Yeah.
So I figured, why not collate them? Why not average them out and then just basically put them to you guys, do an article on it, give you some stats and just stoke some debate. Now, the reason that I think I'm not going to use the word better, but the reason that I prefer this method is because anybody could just wait until the end of a block of games and then recency bias kicks in and all that, and you'll end up with like McGregor not being in it because he's been out for a few games, that kind of thing, and just saying, all right, well, this is who I think has been really good. But if you're doing it on a game-by-game thing, you've no choice but to rate them on that game.
Yeah.
So ultimately, although it is an opinion because it's a subjective detailed player rating, when you're averaging them out, there's a certain pattern will emerge. Now, whether that's your bias for Joe Hart, Tony, or whether it's my bias for Greg Taylor or whatever, notwithstanding, I still prefer that method than just maybe me, you and Tony, and me, you and Aidan, just saying to each other, right, there's my top 10, there's my top 15, and then just saying, right, that's who it is without any sort of justification. So,
Aidan, I find it difficult to mark Joe Hart because there's lots of times he's not doing anything, and then Sean will always query it and say, 7, Joe Hart?
Aye, it's my pet peeve, Tony. It's my pet peeve. He's not done anything. How can he get a 7?
But, I mean, he's not done anything wrong.
He's not done anything. I have a lot of the time. That's the thing.
So how do you mark
if you don't do anything wrong for a keeper, to me, that's coming out claiming crosses, making a couple of saves. But there's games he's made 0 saves.
Even how do you mark a guy that hasn't done anything,
It's another really good question.
Tell him, give him a 6. That's what you do.
How do you mark a guy that's not really done anything? I'm getting out with a good question today. I think probably with heart a 6 most of the time. I would say is probably fair. But then he does have games that he can pull off really good saves. It's difficult in Scotland, as we all know, that a lot of the time he won't have anything to do.
Yeah.
I think in the Champions League games, there's a couple of times he's maybe not performed to quite his sort of.
Agree with that.
Probably even his current level. I know he's obviously getting a bit older, but I'm sure he would have even been disappointed with some of the performance. I'm thinking away to Leipzig, etc. When obviously he kicked the ball right to the guys. So I'd imagine in that game, Tony, I don't know if you can remember what individual rating you gave him there, but I'd imagine it'd have been quite low.
What game was that?
The Leipzig game.
Leipzig game. Let's see, with the home or away one?
The away one.
The first one or second one, sorry.
The first
I wasn't
one.
on that. I was in Tenerife at that time.
Oh,
so
it was my good self, and I can't confirm I gave him a 5, Aidan. So.
5, yeah. So like that'd be a kind of for a performance like that, because he did make some good saves as well, but overall that's probably fair. So it's probably might seem to some people a wee bit harsh sometimes if he's getting like a 6. It's only one mark above that when he's not really done anything wrong, but if he's not been involved really at all, it's hard to tell. So yeah, I would say a 6 or a 7 is probably okay if it's a game that he's quite quiet.
Get off that fence, Aidan. Get off that fence. You've just agreed with the 2s at the one time. Somebody was asking about, I can't find the comment, but about Leo Abada's actual marks. And I mean, I've got them in front of me, and the ones that all the games that qualify for it, I said there was a 3-game stretch. The Dundee United Ross County Rangers games, that was an 8, a 7 and a 9. But apart from that, he's not had an 8, a 7 or a 9 again this season. It's been 5, 6s and 4s. So that kind of explains why he's ended up so low, even though a lot of that has come. I mean, a couple of those games he scored, but that's not to say, Tony, that he's actually had a good game, if you know what I mean.
True.
So, yeah. Beach Boys is saying he knows every reporter's way of thinking. Everybody starts at a 7. If they play well or score, they get marked up. If they do something bad, they get a mark off. I start at a 6. Tony, would you start at?
I don't start at anything, actually. I don't. I just. I find that because I think your bias kicks in then, as well.
A run-of-the-mill performance to me is a 6. So you start on a 6, and if you do something, you're kind of verging down to a 5. If you do something wrong, if you do something good, you're verging up the way. So I don't think I think a 7 is a good performance. I think a 7 is maybe not an excellent display, but a 7 is a good performance if you give somebody a 7.
Yeah. Okay, I'll bear that in mind, boss.
Do you not agree? Do you not think a 7's a good mark?
Yeah, I do actually. Yeah, but
a 7's a good mark.
I still think that you can have a 7 and be just better than average. Whereas if you're hitting 8s and 9s, then you've been excellent. But a 7, I still think 7 is a decent performance, but and
on the subject of 9s, Tony. There has been only 2 players to have got a 9 rating on more than 2 occasions so far.
Carter Vickers has to be one of them.
Nope, he's almost exclusively 8s, just constantly.
Right. Okay, well I'll say Jota then.
Jota is one of them. Aidan, do you want to guess at the other? Do you remember actually? You've read them. I know you read them through. So do you remember?
Was it Abada? Did Abada get
No, Abada's only had the 9 once.
I would have thought it would be Taylor, maybe.
It is Taylor. It's Greg Taylor.
Yeah, because I'm basing it on form, and Taylor's been outstanding for the last few while. So I'm taking it that's been in the last while, and Jota as well has, since he came back against Livingston, has been pretty terrific. So I'm kind of basing it on that.
With Taylor, there's been the game. See, the only games that Taylor's really not been that great is the games where everybody's not really been that great. St Mirren and Real Madrid. That's the kind of 2 main ones where I think you get a 5, and then there was another 6, and then I think most of them have been 7s and 8s, and then those 3 9s as well. So I mean, I was surprised that he never broke into the top 5. But then when you look at the guys above him, Ralston, the only one I thought maybe that he was switched with. But then again, when you said there, Tony, when you think about what Ralston's actually done when he's been there for he's nearly 800 minutes, it's virtually been 8s.
Yeah, and I don't think the Celtic supporters would disagree with that, would they? In terms of Ralston's output, Aidan, I think it's been pretty first class.
Yeah, when Ralston's played, he's put in some really good performances, and it's been sort of tough games when they've had to dig in. We're thinking St Johnston away, etc. Also when they get the goal in the last minute. So it makes sense why Ralston's there, even though he's maybe not played as much as other players. It's based off sort of like average ratings collated, and when he's came in, I can't really think of a game where he struggled really this season when he came in. So he's maybe not always been the standout guy, but he's never really let the team down. So
St Mirren is the only game.
St
Anybody that played in that St Mirren game,
struggled. So that's the only one. Really.
I go back to Sean, that Livingston game with that opening goal with Ralston, Taylor, Kyogo, the epitome of the inverted fullback and attacking system working to perfection, and that's the kind of thing that Ralston and Taylor have been producing lately in my eye test. And I remember asking Ange the question about that goal specifically, and he kind of flashed one of those grins and was kind of, he was really, I said that goal would have pleased you greatly, and he was just kind of like nodding sagely as if, yeah, that's what I want. You know, because that's a brilliant goal, that, because Celtic played it around, then Ralston got it on the right, played it inside to Taylor, who came inside, who fed Kyogo, touch out his feet, bang, it's in the top corner, and it's slick, it was quick, and on a surface like that, I you know, it's not goal of the season per se, but it's certainly in my top 3 or top 5 of Celtic goals this season, because I really did think that epitomised what Ange was talking about, you know. So
Andrew Galea coming in saying 8s and 9s are a dominant performance. That's the way I look at it. A 6 is a kind of average, not done anything really that poor. A 7 is a good display. An 8 was excellent. A 9 is superb. And a 10, I don't think it exists, Tony, unless you get a hat-trick in the World Cup final, Champions League final, that kind of thing.
I'm just going to throw Edward Wyavos, who's just says Tony says like the Sydney Opera House. I'm liking that comment, Edward. That's very true.
Got an interesting one here from Michael Ross saying, have I done a spreadsheet based on just Champions League performances? No, I've not, but I can easily do it because it's all there. I've got the games listed below, so I can check what games it was. So it's only 6 games. I should be able to do that pretty easily. If that's something anybody else is interested in as well, could just average them out, the Champions League performances. That not everybody will qualify for it because not everybody played enough in the Champions League probably, but I easily could do it. There's one guy been mentioned a few times here that we kind of skated past him because he's not played all that much, but he obviously met the minutes threshold, and that's the man Aiden who is in 13th, Alexandro Bernabei. So what have you made of him so far? And are you surprised he's 13th, or are you thinking that's probably fair given he's played all right when he's been called upon?
Yeah, I'm not surprised that he has kind of made it into the overall 21 players because he's firstly, like you said, he's done okay and he has probably started to rack up the minutes a bit. So, yeah, I thought he's been all right. I thought probably his best performance was maybe the game against Hibs at Celtic Park. Mm-hmm. I know there was some kind of, not arguments, but discussion at that time about how that maybe wasn't the best sample size to analyse him on because it was the ideal game for a Celtic fullback. Very open, didn't really have to defend that much, and he could just kind of get forward when he wanted, not have to worry about any repercussions. And then we've seen, and even the Everton game, in the recent match, he was out of position a few times. Oh no, sorry, no, it wasn't the Everton game, it was the Sydney game.
The Sydney game, he kind of played it like a friendly, I think, rather than playing it in the way that it was meant to play it.
He kind of just patched his defensive roles. So yeah, I think he's been all right, but it's definitely Greg Taylor's jersey, and I think Bernabei's got a long way to go, to be honest.
I don't think
Tony, that is that's the problem, though, isn't it? The fact that Greg Taylor is excellent again this season. But when Bernabei's actually played, you mentioned the Hibs game, he didn't get an 8 out of 10 for that. He also got an 8 out of 10 for the St Johnston game.
Yeah, he played the assist for Jackamakis last minute winner. You know, he just kept playing to the whistle. The boy went down, and he didn't think.
He didn't stop. So he's not played. He wasn't. I mean, he wasn't that close to not meeting the cutoff for the minutes. As I say, Forrest was the closest to the cutoff, but when he has played, he's played well for the most part. I think the Hearts game where he gets subbed off at half time after getting the penalty given against him and stuff. I mean, he played the full half, so that does count into the ratings. But he got a 5 for that because obviously he gave away a penalty, whether we think it was a penalty or not. And he get taken off at half time, so he never even had a chance to kind of get himself back up the ratings. But for the most of the rest of the games, he's played well. I seen that there. Beach Boys, I've got a sneaky feeling Sean has already sent the TCW Player of the Year trophy away to get Taylor's name engraved. Potentially, couldn't possibly comment.
Talking about bias, Aidan, Talking about bias, There you go.
I've put him 6th just to throw you off the scent, that's what it
is. Indeed.
Right, Tony, we've not mentioned a couple of other ones in this top 10 before we wrap it up. I'll throw 3 names at you.
Go on.
Ryle Hatate, Matt O'Reilly, Jota. Right order?
Do you know what? I thought maybe O'Reilly would have been top 3.
Right.
And Hatate would be top 5. So I think you kind of...
At whose expense? Ralston and McGregor, maybe?
Probably Ralston and McGregor, only because McGregor's been out and has... But I know, as you say, they played every minute up until then.
The thing with being injured is you're at your rating can't dip because it's already what it is at that point.
So that's all. That's the only caveat I would add to that. But I mean Riley 4th and Hatate 7. You know, I can't, as I say, I can't really disagree with the top 8 there. In order of preference, would maybe beg to differ on that, you know. But you know my thoughts on O'Reilly. I think he's a fantastic footballer, and I also think Hatate has shown some wonderful levels of skill. Aidan's nodding there. The last game in particular, where they won 2-1, it was a real slog. I think Hatate showed some real class.
Definitely.
Especially he set up Turnbull, and then it was just his wee give and go that saw Haksabanovic bend it around Ross County, wasn't it? If I remember well, you know. I think big players come to the fore when you need them most. And I thought those two that day, O'Reilly and Hatate, were terrific that day. Haksabanovic was very good as well. You know, so and they made that happen that day, O'Reilly and Hatate, and you know, Celtic dug out 3 points when they needed it most. When they could easily have, I think Ange said it afterwards, didn't he? He said they could easily have chucked it and said it wasn't their day because they were the victim of another kind of controversial, dubious penalty decision. But they kept going, and I thought that in particular, those two shone that day, O'Reilly and Hatate, in my opinion. You know, they were
both played a lot of football in the McGregor absence because really, even with rotation and even with maybe taking people off early and stuff, the two of them have started, what was it I said again, 12 consecutive games now, or was it 13 now? I can't remember. It was one or the other, which is both of their longest run at Celtic, obviously, but also both their longest run since a considerable time ago. So, in terms of Hatate, remember he won our player of pre-season, Tony, because he was outstanding. Matt O'Reilly was superb in pre-season, and it took something special to beat him out of that. And I know it was only kind of half a laugh, but it was the same method. And Hatate was just obscenely good in pre-season, and he carried that into the start of the season as well. So it was only really maybe see the Shakhtar, Real Madrid, Livingston kind of games where he kind of went through a wee bit of a dip, and that's kind of ended up with him outside the top 5. But the last couple of games have showed, especially the Ross County game, as you say, have shown he's getting back to that kind of that influential best. Aidan, come to you with the next one up, Matt O'Reilly.
Yeah, I thought Matt O'Reilly might be a wee bit, maybe slightly higher, maybe just swapped with Ralston probably there. I would quite agree with Carter Vickers and Jota being at the top. I actually just thought, I know you asked me about O'Reilly, but just in terms of Hatate, that he so far for me has probably been my player of the season.
Right.
Just in terms, I think his performance has been brilliant. Had a slight dip that you mentioned with the 3 games, but overall he's been excellent. And that goal he scored against Motherwell in the League Cup, when he just sort of
the 5-a-side goal.
The 5-a-side goal, aye.
It was one of the sort of best bits of skill I've seen in front of goal for a while. So overall, I would say, apart from maybe O'Reilly swapping with Alston, it's relatively spot on.
That'll be the two. When I ask you two used to pick your goals of the season, that's 2 contenders as you've got for it right away already. So, I mean, we mentioned Jota. I don't really know what else to say about him. In the entry, I called him a virtuoso footballer who combines outstanding technical skill with a born entertainer's lust for applause and in the raw output of a cold-blooded killer. Because there's usually when you see a player of Jota's ilk, especially almost a rookie in senior football, Saw it last year. You're seeing it again this year. He's got even better. He's going to get a double again of goals and assists. It's bound to happen, barring injury. Usually, when it's a silky player like that, they kind of maybe lack a wee bit in terms of actual output, in terms of goals and assists. They flatter to deceive a wee bit. But he's the opposite. He just constantly gets goals, constantly gets assists, constantly creates chances. And to be the type of player that he is, in the position that he's in, and consistently be the top 1, 2, and 3 of an average rating thing, which by nature is subjective, and you've seen it with Abada, by nature a winger will drift in and out of games. I just think that's to his eternal credit, Tony.
Shawnee just loves playing football. He loves scoring goals. He loves setting up goals. He hated that spell when he was out injured. Hated it. Come back against Livingston, scored. You saw the joy in his face. You saw that picture when he ran to the older lady. You know, that wonderful picture. You know, just, and also, see, for me, see celebrating a goal in the Bernabeu, even though it's a consolation. That's what football's all about. Doesn't matter. You big players do big things, and he produced a wonderful free kick against a world-class goalkeeper and celebrated it the way you should. You know, how many players would have just went, well, consolation, you know, that's that. But, you know, he did a special thing in a special arena, and, you know, and it was a personal thing for him. It was kind of a culmination of a wee dream. And if people can't see that and they can't understand that, then I don't know what they're watching. You know, that as you say, this is a born entertainer. And he tries to entertain every time he goes out, but you see with the cold-bloodedness of a killer at times, and you know, can't get the two of them.
He loves it.
He can't get two of them confused, and he does love it in that. And I think, see, watching on, I think there's a Jota in everybody, isn't there? There's a child footballer in him, that street footballer, and you're beating a player and all that. But there's the adult footballer in where you're the consummate professional. No, others would unfairly label you a show pony or a sand dancer, but he's neither nor. You know, he's neither nor. You know,
no.
And
what he is, Tony, what he is the most talented player in Scottish football.
Yeah,
I know he's not top of these rankings, but that doesn't mean he's not the most talented. He's the most talented player in Scottish football.
Yeah, Aidan Winger's dip sometimes in form, but I think Jota takes it as a personal slight if he has a dip in form.
Yeah, I think you can see that, and obviously his injury did clearly get to him, like you mentioned, because straight away when he came back in against Livingston, he scores and he was going absolutely crazy. So, yeah, wingers, we know what it's like. It's not often that Jota is inconsistent, but they're always going to have games where they're maybe just not quite at it. Even if the team still gets a good result and has a positive performance, there can be games that if you're a winger for the club that it just maybe doesn't happen for you. But there's not very many of them for Jota, and when he does have one like that, the whole team's usually struggling. So, yeah, it did get to him when he wasn't scoring and he was out. You could see that.
And you talk about goals of the season. I think Jota's goal against Rangers in the 4-0 game might be.
Yeah, of course.
You know, it doesn't really get spoken about as much. People, I think, forget how ludicrously brilliant that dink was. But
and he made it look easy. But do you know what makes it for me? It's the pass from O'Reilly.
Aye, well, aye.
You know, I mentioned this before as well. You know, people spoke about Dembele and how good he was in the goals he scored when he was at Celtic. But the best thing he did for me was that pass that released Edouard for his goal. You know, just moments like that mark you out as a special footballer. And again, those two moments, O'Reilly's pass and the finish, mark those two out as special footballers. And Celtic are lucky to have them. And I guess it's moments like that put a smile on your face, and exactly why you talk about them as goal of the season contenders, Aidan, and just, you know, guys at the top of their game.
I think when you come to, we've talked about, there was a couple of comments about O'Reilly again. I'd say last year that I fully expected them to be in the podium positions this season. Now, with O'Reilly, I've said this in the entry as well, but you can kind of split his season into BC before Callum McGregor's injury and then after Callum McGregor's injury. And while he was playing his kind of more natural position at the 8 further forward, it was basically like that 8-game opening stretch. I say Tatati brought his pre-season form into the actual season. So did O'Reilly. O'Reilly averaged 8 over that first 8 or 9 games, 5 assists into the bargain. After McGregor got injured, which I think 11 games in or so, and to his credit as well, it was him that Postecoglou turned to with that responsibility to play slightly deeper and play the kind of Callum McGregor role. and he's averaging 7 out of 10, which, all right, is technically a dip of 1 full mark, but to get 7 out of 10 consistently in 12 consecutive starts at what is a position that he's not used to is just, I just think it's magnificent, and it's to his credit, as I say.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Right, well, before we wrap up, because we're nearly going an hour here, it is a bumper power ranking special, but number 1, best for last, Tony, Aidan, Cameron Carter-Vickers. Won it last year, was our inaugural TCW Player of the Season. This season so far, Tony, you call him Cameron Carter-Vickers 8. This season, he's had 1-6 rating, which was the Shakhtar game, and every other game has been either an 8 or a 7, and there's been more 8s than 7s. What more can you say?
It tells you you know, doesn't it? I just think there's a real dependency on him now, isn't there? But he's just a colossus, and he's solid, and he's so reliable, and he's, you know, I don't think they've had a presence like that since Bobo Baldi at the back of the pack, Aidan.
And I think Cameron Carter-Vickers' consistency would probably outshine Bobo's, but certainly in terms of presence, I get you.
I'm just talking about an actual physical presence, Aidan, you know?
Yeah, Carter-Vickers has been exceptional in terms of the whole option to buy on a loan deal, try before you buy type thing. He's been the perfect advert for that. From start to finish.
The top two, Aidan, the top two are
I know.
Loan to buy ones.
It's amazing. His last season, he just came in, he was seamless. As you were saying, obviously he was a TCW Player of the Year. This season as well, he's been phenomenal. So nothing but good things to say about Carter-Vickers, and I just hope he's somebody that can stay at the club for a long time, because he's a brilliant player. Kaiser
says Cameron carpet slippers. Why does he say that? Because he strolls games in his jammies, guys. Because he strolls games in his jammies. I think I've put it in the entry, and I kind of referenced it earlier on talking about Jens. But that notion that you really realise how important a player is when they're not available. Seen that last year with Callum McGregor, and all right, this year O'Reilly's done a magnificent job of trying to cover that gap. But you still miss Callum McGregor. Let's not beat about the bush. With Cameron Carter-Vickers, he missed 3 games in a row. I know he's missed 4 overall, but that was a kind of an extra one. The 3 games in a row that he missed, and this is what I was saying earlier on, every other defender and the goalkeeper took a ratings dive across all of those 3 games while he was out. And I don't think that's a coincidence, Tony. The only one that didn't, Greg Taylor got a 7 once in those 3 games. He was the only defender or goalkeeper in those 3 games that Cameron Carter-Vickers wasn't there to actually go above a 6. And I just don't think that's a coincidence. And you see now why it was him and not Joe Hart that got that armband, don't you?
Yeah, without a doubt. Indeed. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, you know, he's as I said there, he's a colossus. He is so consistent. And he's really taken to playing for Celtic, you know, and having not played a lot of first-team football when he signed. But my goodness, it didn't show, did it? You know, having had was it 6 or 7 loan spells he had? People sort of saying the kind of nomadic existence. He's just found a spiritual home and a football home, and he's revelled in it, and it's probably all he's ever craved in his career.
Eric Wijnaldum told you that, didn't he? He said that to you about that, how much of a difference that can make.
Yeah, and it's a credit to him, because and he's embraced it, and he's loving it, and long may it continue.
Aidan, any last words for Cameron Carter-Vickers getting into the next one? Because the next ratings probably be the next international break, whenever that is. Can't remember off the top of my head. That's the usual times we do it anyway. Do you expect Carter-Vickers to potentially still be at the summit?
Ooh.
That'll be a no then.
That'll be a no, yes,
that'll be a no.
Well,
where he's went there. The Dumbarton Wi-Fi's went down. I mean, we're going to wrap it up anyway, Tony. Let's assume his answer was no, just to get a wee bit of debate going. He thinks it's going to be Hatate, by the sounds of it.
That was hilarious. Commentators cuss there, Sean, big time.
I throw it to you, Aidan. Go on. No, you won't. Right, well, we call it there, Tony, then.
We'll call it a day.
We'll put this back up before we go, just to remind people, I suppose, won't we?
Remind you guys of the Black Friday offer. £1 for 6 months of full access. Can't say fairer than that. Hit the subscribe button, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Really enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed it. The power rankings. it stimulates healthy debate, Sean, or for want of a better expression. But it's always good chatting. It's always great getting out with Andrew Galea. Yeah, indeed, it's always great getting your own opinions on it, guys. As we say, it's not foolproof, but yeah, we like to do it, and we like to gauge your own opinion on that.
It does stoke debate, Tony. Michael Rossi, he's put that nugget in my head. I think I might do that as a newsletter or something.
Why not? That's a good one.
Just quickly average out the Champions League scores and put that to
it's good to be back with the familiar surroundings of the wardrobe behind you and all that, guys. I had a good time when I was away. That was great. And thanks to Sean and the guys for their help when I was out there as well. But yeah, it's all good. And we shall end it there. We'll be back tomorrow. No doubt we'll be talking about something. We always do. Lots of preparation and effort goes into it. We just try and make it look as if we know what we're talking about, Very interesting. Clearly, Aidan's not coming back. He's took the half or whatever.
No, well, Robert reckons Aidan's mum's grounded him and knocked the Wi-Fi off, but you never know.
But guys, if you haven't already subscribed, do that. £1 for 6 months. www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. If you have subscribed or you are a regular subscriber, thanks for everything. We really do appreciate it. Thanks for the comments. Thanks for your subscription. We do. We don't just pay lip service to that. We can't do it without you, and we appreciate it. And we hope you enjoy the content that we produce on the pods as well as the website. There's something there for everybody. Statistical data analysis. Sean's big on that. Scouting reports. Big interviews.
Features, big interviews. Speaking of which, actually, I hope you all tuned into Tony's big interview with Vida Reset yesterday. Went live on the channel, but there's also a written version, a written big interview with him, and a quite interesting news, kind of wee separate story, a wee tale about his transfer to Celtic getting accidentally divulged to the press by his unsuspecting wife. I'll let you find that on the news bit of the site. Tony put that up as well. It was a great retail.
And Sean, maybe keep your eye out on the channel at some point.
I get plenty of stuff still to come over the next few days. That'll be fine.
He's back.
He's back to say goodbye.
Oh, sorry about that. That was a Wi-Fi issue.
Hello, goodbye.
Yes, in terms of the Beatles, hello. I don't know why you say goodbye. I say hello. Yeah, indeed. You saying cheerio, Aidan? We've just
always a pleasure. Cheers.
No, thanks for that, Aidan. Yeah, thanks for your input there. That was brilliant. Really enjoyed it.
Yep.
You can tell it was good because that's nearly an hour, guys, and it's just flown in. So there you have it.
Cheers, guys. Cheers, Aidan. Cheers, Tony.